Michael Foster woke up in the dark. He couldn't understand where he was or what had happened to him. There was silence all around, and only heavy breathing filled the space. His body didn't obey. It seemed as if he was trapped in a cocoon of unknown matter, and only his slowly returning consciousness helped him realize that this was not just a dream. The last thing he remembered was the morning of an ordinary day. He was getting ready for work. As usual, went through all the usual rituals and got behind the wheel of his car. The day promised to be unremarkable, but around the corner of his life, an unknown darkness lurked. He remembered the impact. The flash of light, the screams, the accident. Yes, it was an accident. Michael tried to remember the details, but his consciousness began to fade again, as if someone or something was stubbornly preventing him from fully waking up. When he opened his eyes again, the light filled his entire perception. He felt as if an icy wave had washed over his body. His head was splitting with pain, but it was not an ordinary pain, it was something else. It was not coming from physical sensations, but from the depths of his mind, as if an alien force was trying to penetrate his consciousness. Michael sat up abruptly, feeling the air fill his lungs. He was in a room, but this room was strange. Smooth walls made of a material he could not identify surrounded him on all sides. There was no ceiling visible, only light coming from somewhere above, filling the entire space. In the center of the room was a metal table, and on it were strange instruments, similar to surgical ones. "Where am I?" Michael croaked hoarsely, feeling his voice return to him. There was no answer. He tried to get up, but his body did not obey. His arms and legs were fixed with thin but strong straps. Michael began to jerk his hands convulsively, hoping to break free, but this only increased the pain in his wrists. Suddenly, a man in a white coat appeared in front of him, a tall man with pale skin and a cold gaze. He silently approached Michael and leaned over him. "Who are you? What's going on?" Michael gasped, trying to comprehend the absurdity of what was happening. The man said nothing, only put a small device to his head, which began to emit a faint electrical noise. Michael felt his body become cold again, and everything around him began to blur. The room disappeared, but his consciousness remained. He felt himself floating in emptiness, in absolute silence. When he came to, everything around him was already different. He found himself in a huge corridor, the walls of which were made of black metal, covered with strange, flickering symbols. A strange silence reigned around, only a light breeze passed through narrow openings in the walls. Michael rose to his feet and looked around. Everything here seemed unreal, like in a dream, but it was too clear and specific for a dream. He realized that this place was not a figment of his imagination, but something much more sinister. It was as if his mind had entered another dimension, but he did not know how. He walked along the corridor, trying to find a way out or at least understand what had happened to him. The symbols on the walls seemed to be watching him, changing their shape as he passed by. Their patterns thickened and then spread out, as if responding to his presence. Michael felt uneasy. With each step, the corridor seemed longer and more endless. Sometimes he noticed side passages, but each time he came closer, they disappeared, as if they did not really exist. "This is some kind of labyrinth," he said out loud, hoping that at least the sound of his voice would give him confidence. Suddenly he heard footsteps. They were faint, barely distinguishable, but they were approaching. Michael froze, his heart pounding faster. There was no one in the corridor, but he knew for sure that he was not alone. The footsteps grew louder, and in the distance he saw a shadow moving towards him. Michael began to run in a panic, not knowing where or why. He did not look back, but he felt that his pursuer was getting closer. His breathing became rapid, his legs refused to move, but fear pushed him forward. After several minutes of aimless running, Michael stopped abruptly. Ahead, at the end of the corridor, he saw a metal door. It looked like it led outside to salvation. Without thinking, he ran towards it, but as soon as he approached, the door began to slowly disappear, spreading in the air like smoke. "No," he screamed, but it was too late. The door disappeared, leaving him in the same endless corridor. The footsteps behind him stopped, and he felt someone's presence right behind him. He did not dare turn around. His throat was dry, cold sweat ran down his back. "You've been looking for us for a long time," said the voice, cold and alien, but somehow familiar. Michael turned slowly and saw a figure standing a few steps away from him. It was a man, but his face was covered by a hood, and only his eyes glowed with a cold blue light. "Who are you? What do you want?" Michael asked, stepping back. "We've always been here," the voice continued. "We've been waiting for you to come." Michael felt something inside his mind begin to crumble. Everything he knew about the world was a lie. This person or creature something stood before him, knew more about him than he did. Suddenly his mind was filled with images, fragments of memory, pieces of the past that he could not remember. "What is happening?" he whispered, trying to hold on to the last remnants of sanity. "You are only part of a greater plan," the creature replied. "We created you like so many others, for one purpose. You had to reach this moment to open the door to a world you did not even know existed." Michael began to realize that his life had been an illusion, created to prepare him for this moment. All the events, all the decisions had been planned in advance. His mind was trapped in a labyrinth that was created not for him to find a way out, but for him to understand that there was no way out. He felt his consciousness dissolving in this strange space. The walls of the corridor began to disappear, and before him opened an endless space, filled with twinkling stars and streams of light. He realized that he was only a small part of a huge game, part of a plan that encompassed not only his life, but countless other worlds. The last thing he saw before he disappeared was the face of a creature with blue eyes. It was smiling.